Let me introduce my lawyer. Robbie Kaplan, as many of you know, is a partner in litigation department at Paul Weiss. She's been chosen by the National Law Journal as one of the top 40 under 40 lawyers in the United States, as a New York super lawyer, and as one of the 500 leading litigators in the United States. In addition to representing major corporate clients in complex, high-profile matters, Robbie currently, and for the past 3 years, has represented me in a case challenging the Defense of Marriage Act. The federal statute that defines marriage as a legal union between one man and one woman. Having prevailed in the district court and in the Second Circuit, she argued the case in the United States Supreme Court last month, as most of you know. We'll know the results in June, right? Okay. But we're very hopeful. Robbie's a graduate of Harvard College and Columbia Law School, served as a law clerk to the Honorable Judith S. Kay of the New York Court of Appeals and the Honorable Mark Wolf of the District of Massachusetts. My personal experience with her is not just as a powerhouse litigator, arguing for my rights. She is family and represents family with all of her being. In answer to my search for a lawyer, Robbie walked into my apartment, listened to my story, and then said, "It's my story too." And she told me about her wife, Rachel, and their son, Jacob. And she said, "I'd like to take your case." Soon after she took me on as her client, she took me in as a member of her immediate family, and it's a nice place to be. It was soon apparent, and has grown more so, that we share a much larger family, the LGBT family. Almost 3 million children with mothers and emas and fathers and daddies, and then the rest of us, right? When she argues DOMA, she is cool and calm and reasoned and informed, all of which is sustained by her deeply felt passion for family equality, recognition, family loving, in every sense of the word family. And I can't stop smiling when I remember moments in the Supreme Court when I heard Justice Kennedy say, "What about the 40,000 children in California?" And again from Robbie when somebody was saying something fairly stupid, and she simply said, "The American Academy of Pediatrics with 60,000 members." Okay, think differently about that. You must all be very proud of your amicus. Both of those things were learned from your amicus, in fact. Okay. The Hostetter Habib Family Award is given to those who share an unwavering commitment to Family Equality Council's core values of love, justice, family, equality for all loving families. Recipients demonstrate this commitment through work on the front lines to advance the equality of loving families. This year, none of us can think of anyone more deserving of this award. I am so pleased and proud and honored to represent the Family Equality Council in presenting this award to Roberta Kaplan.
Thank you. Thank you. So now's the fun part, because now I get to speak about Edie Windsor. The oral arguments at the Supreme Court last month remind us why it is that we have a Constitution, to bind us together as citizens of one nation, each of whom is guaranteed equal protection under the law. There is no case, and there is no person that better demonstrates the concept of equal protection than Edie Windsor versus the United States of America. Edie's life tells a remarkable story of courage, of love, and sacrifice, one that will be taught for generations, just like the stories of Rosa Parks or Cesar Chavez or Harvey Milk. Edie and Thea met in 1963. They started dating in 1965, and they got engaged in 1967. That's right, 1967. Please take a moment, if you will, and think about that. Think about the self-esteem, the courage, the dignity, and the foresight it took for two women in 1967, 2 years before Stonewall, to decide to become engaged to each other, decades before anyone ever could have dreamed that that would become a realistic possibility. But the most heroic part of Edie's life is what happened for the next 40 years. 10 years into their relationship, Thea was diagnosed with a terrible form of multiple sclerosis. And over time, she lost the use of her arms and then her legs. And by the time of her death, she only was able to use one finger. Edie and Thea decided that their life was going to be devoted to seizing joy. And they made sure that as little as possible in Thea's life changed during the course of her illness. And they kept dancing together in Thea's wheelchair, and Thea kept seeing patients until the day that she died. Any one of us, gay or straight, young or old, man or woman, would be so lucky to have a marriage like Edie and Thea had. And while Edie and Thea never had their own children, Edie's case is very much about families, about Edie's family with Thea, about all the thousands of American families adversely affected by DOMA, as well as all the families represented in this room tonight. I probably don't need to tell this audience that the issue of children being raised by gay parents was very much on the justices' minds last month in Washington, D.C. As you may have heard, and as Edie mentioned, Justice Kennedy spoke about the voice of the children. As he explained, there are some 40,000 children in California that live with same-sex parents, and they want their parents to have full recognition and full status. The voice of those children is important in this case, don't you think? We agree with Justice Kennedy. While questions of gay parenting did not come up directly during the oral argument in Windsor, now is my chance to say what I would have said if the justices had asked me the question. Let's first look at what our opponents actually say in their brief. It has been called either the responsible procreation argument or the irresponsible procreation argument, depending upon who's describing it. I'll read it to you directly from their brief so you can hear it for yourselves. In retaining the traditional definition of marriage for federal law purposes, Congress recognized the basic biological fact that only a man and a woman can beget a child together without advanced planning, which means that opposite-sex couples have a unique tendency to produce unplanned and unintended offspring. I'm not kidding. That's what it says. We are now living in a topsy-turvy world where the problem for marriage traditionalists today has nothing to do with gay people, but instead is irresponsible begetting by straight people. Pretty ironic, huh? But it makes no sense to conclude that DOMA encourages straight couples to do anything at all, much less avoid unplanned and unintended children. Put in real-life terms, no straight couple anywhere in the United States of America is going to decide to marry or have children because Edie Windsor had to pay a $363,000 estate tax bill. And I'm willing to go out on a limb and say that no straight couple is going to call off their wedding if Edie gets a tax refund when the Supreme Court rules as she should. In fact, despite all the noise, there really is no legitimate debate about gay parenting at all. The overwhelming scientific consensus, based on decades of peer-reviewed scientific research, is that children raised by lesbian and gay parents are just as well adjusted as children raised by straight parents. Let me read you the following Q&A from our expert in our case, Dr. Michael Lamb, who is the head of psychology at the University of Cambridge. Question: is it fair to conclude that you are a supporter of gay marriage? Answer: yes. Question: if there were no studies about gay parenting, would you still support gay marriage? Answer: well, I think that's a hard question to answer, and that it requires me to ignore the research that we do have. I mean, I have come to support gay marriage because I have spent 35 or so years studying the factors that affect children's adjustment. There is a considerable body of research documenting that the sexual orientation of parents isn't a factor associated with their adjustment, and that's what leads me to the conclusion that there is no reasonable basis for excluding same-sex parents from the status of marriage. So what is the source of this so-called debate out there about gay parents? There really is only one study on the other side, and it was written by a guy from the University of Texas named Mark Regnerus. However, as he himself admitted to the New York Times, Mr. Regnerus did not compare apples to apples. Instead, he compared either apples to oranges, or perhaps more accurately, rotten apples to oranges. Let me explain. Regnerus compared the responses to an internet survey of two groups of young adults. The first group told the interviewers that at some point in their childhood, one parent had experienced a same-sex affair of any duration, including a one-night stand. In most of those cases, the parents and the family subsequently split apart, probably due to the fact that at least one of the parents was really gay. The second group that Regnerus studied were kids who spent their entire childhoods in stable, straight, married families that encountered no such disruptions or trauma. You probably won't be shocked to learn that the second group of kids from the stable families tended to do better than the first group. But that's not a surprise, because the study was pre-engineered to achieve precisely that result. In other words, the Regnerus study did not compare children raised by gay couples to those raised by straight couples, and it did not compare stable straight households with stable gay households. The Regnerus study did not compare apples to apples at all. For this reason, although Mr. Regnerus calls himself a sociologist, the American Sociological Association has condemned his work in no uncertain terms, stating that it provides no support for the conclusions that same-sex parents are inferior parents. And although the other side is we always hear them complaining about the lack of longitudinal studies. A longitudinal study is a study that follows a kid throughout their childhood. That's not accurate either. The most recent findings of the National Longitudinal Lesbian Family Study, the longest-running investigation of lesbian moms and their kids, is striking. The now 17-year-old kids who have participated in this study since birth have all had high school GPAs in the A- to B+ range, and nearly all plan to attend four-year colleges. This is what the principal investigator had to say. We have been following these families for 26 years. These kids were planned, and their lesbian mothers were very engaged in parenting. At the end of high school, these teens tell us that they have excellent grades, feel connected to their families and friends, and admire their parents. As a psychiatrist, I can say that these are the types of child-rearing outcomes that every parent hopes for. And as a parent myself, I can say amen to that. So what does the scientific record actually tell us about children being raised by gay parents? I believe it can be summarized as follows. 1, the overwhelming scientific consensus is that gay parents do just as well as straight parents. 2, there is not a shred of evidence to suggest that gay parents are inferior to straight parents in any way. And 3, and I have to admit, here's my personal favorite, there is even evidence to suggest that lesbian parents are better than straight parents. I would respectfully suggest that these are some of the reasons why we have been winning the marriage debate nationwide. So I'd like to thank the Family Equality Council, an organization that is dedicated to and truly does protect and amplify the voices of those children that Justice Kennedy spoke about. I'd also like to thank, of course, Edie Windsor, a true American hero, for having the courage to use her own life story to achieve justice. Since we are on the theme of families, definitely the best part of representing Edie is that she has become a member of our family, as she said, and she is willing to read Captain Underpants books to my 7-year-old son for hours and hours on end. And I'm not exaggerating. And a huge thanks to my Paul Weiss family and to the fabulous Windsor team that represents the proudest traditions of the Paul Weiss Law Firm. Many of the team members are here tonight, and they are the unsung heroes of our pro bono case, and they should be recognized as such. But most of all, my eternal gratitude goes to my own family, Rachel Levine and Jacob Kaplan Levine, who somehow managed to put up with all my incredible amount of craziness, and who continue to love and inspire me always. Thank you.